How's it going, everybody? Today we have a brand new machine review. It's been a while since we've put a video up, and I have a really fun machine that I wanted to chat about with you, and this one specifically for our mud fans. So what you see behind me right here is Can-Am's Outlander 850 X MR. So it's a mud specific machine, has a bunch of really specific accessories that are right from the factory that give it the ability to just do some incredible stuff off-road in the mud. And so I'm here to talk about a few of those things. Before I get into it, it is an 850, so it has their Rotax VTwin. In this tune, I think it's good for 78 horsepower. It's very similar to their other Outlanders and Renegades for that matter, but they tune them a little bit differently, you know, for each individual type of riding environment they're manufactured for. This has some specific features that make it great for mudding, and I believe this machine checks in at $11,999, so just under 12 grand. And we had it out and did some crazy mudding, which I'll share some clips with you here in just a bit, out at the Anthracite Outdoor Adventure area, which is in Shamokin, Pennsylvania. So we went out with a group of guys yesterday, put a bunch of time on it. My son just finished pressure washing it for me, which is kind of cool. Did it without asking. Always nice to have that happen. And after about 2 hours, we have it back to looking pretty darn clean. So let's talk about some of the features that make this thing pretty special. So let's start here with the front. Number one is the radiator. You can see that the radiator is up here on top. So number one, it makes it much better when you have the radiator up and out of, hopefully out of the mud. If you get into mud that's that deep, that's some pretty serious stuff. But you know, that absolutely can happen as well. The other really nice feature about having it up here is it makes it a whole lot easier to clean. So it's important after you're done mudding to get in here and run water through all these fins and make sure that, you know, as you're running it from the top to the bottom. I always start at the top and make my way to the bottom. Where you tend to have problems is down in here. The mud, gravity kind of takes care of that, and the mud gathers down in here, and the next thing you know, these things start getting hot. So if you've, let me turn the camera back around here quick. If you've ever heard of anybody saying that they have a problem with these going into limp mode, it's actually not a problem with the machine. It's actually a problem with the maintenance of the person running it. So if you maintain it poorly and you don't get that radiator cleaned out, it is absolutely 100% going to go into limp mode eventually. If you keep that radiator nice and clean, it's going to be a lot better in the long run, because, you know, heat and an engine aren't really good things together, right? So the cooler you can keep that engine, the longer it's going to last, the more reliability you're going to have. So that's feature number one on this one. While we're up here at the front, these are actually snorkels. So one side is the intake for the CVT, and the other side is the intake for actually combustion for the engine. And they just do a really good job having the snorkels up here. It does a really nice job of keeping everything high and dry. You'll see from some of the video just how deep we had this guy, and it was nuts. the kind of mud that we had it in, and this thing just chugged right along. A couple of other things that I want to show you too. So this does have intelligent throttle control, and basically what it does is it allows us to run it in like an eco mode or in a sport mode, and it just basically delivers a different fuel map for the Outlander. So if you don't want it to be quite as hard of a hit, maybe you have somebody who's a little less experienced, then you can kind of tune that down. If you want to, you know, put the hammer to the ground, then you can put it in sport mode, and this thing really takes off. And actually, what goes along with that too is also this key. So this is the key, which is odd, but it's super cool, kind of jet ski-ish. And for a long time, you know, we test a lot of machines, so we don't necessarily, let me move over here, we don't necessarily always know every tiny detail. So it comes with a gray key or a grayish white key, and it comes with a green key. And you know, green means go, right? So I always thought that green was the fast key. It's not. It is actually the slow key, and white is the fast key. And at first I was a little bit disappointed because I'm running around with the green key, and I thought, man, this thing should have way more power than it does. And just hit something on my camera here. And the reality of it is I was ill-informed. It didn't feel quite as powerful because I had the wrong key in. When I put it with the white key in, wow, this thing really wakes up. So let me go back to another thing over here. This also has, you know, just a two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive switch on it. So you put it in, let me see if we can turn it on here. You can either run it in two-wheel drive with just the rear diff locked, or you can put it in four-wheel drive, and you can see it switch up on the screen here too. So let's see if we can get it to work. Let me focus the camera. So there it's in four-wheel drive. Let me switch it to two, and there you can see it actually switch in that spot right there as well. So one of the things to discuss about that is this has their locking differential. It's Can-Am's actual, sorry, I'm a one-guy show here, so I'm switching back and forth. But this is Can-Am's ViscoLock QE, and QE means quick engagement. So the idea being it has a locking differential. The rear is always fully 100% locked, but the front is not. And the idea being behind it is that it's a smart locking differential. So you may be in a slippery situation where you need the four-wheel drive, but if you have the front differential locked, if you've ever tried to turn the wheels on anything with the front diff locked, it's brutal. So what this does is it's kind of smart, right? So if it senses that you need to turn and you still have some traction, it doesn't lock that differential up 100%. And then when you actually need that differential locked, it'll lock it in, and it operates just like a fully locked differential does. This thing was an absolute monster, and as you'll see, you know, from some of the video clips, we'll put a clip here, but I actually walked this through a hole at Anthracite Outdoor Adventure Area, AOA, called Mud Road, and it was probably 4 feet deep. Truth be told, I'm not a huge mudder. You know, my background is in hare scramble and GNCC cross country racing type stuff. So the mud stuff for me is, it's not that I've never done it. I don't do it often, and it was super fun with this thing yesterday. It was just super impressive. So a couple of other things to talk about. It also comes with a standard worn winch, which, guess what, you're going to need. You're eventually going to get stuck. They winched two different guys out of a hole that I went through with this one, which is bone stock. Those other machines were not bone stock. They were highly modified, and they ended up needing winched out, and I didn't with this machine. And it has nothing to do with me, because I have very little experience mudding. I put it all on the Outlander X MR 850. It just did an awesome job. A couple of other little things to point out is it comes standard with ITP tires. So they're 30-inch tires, 30 by 9 by 14. They're 14-inch wheels, not a beadlock wheel. I think a lot of times you'll see one of the first updates that anybody makes is they add a bigger tire and they add a beadlock wheel. And you know, I can see that. I can see if you're heavily into that, why you would want to do it. I've seen guys run portals and stuff as well too. But honestly, we did mudding yesterday. You know, you mud in a small section, but we also put about 40 miles on this machine besides mudding it. And now, was the ride like riding a Renegade XXC 1000? Absolutely not. This thing rides like a tank compared to that. But it's because the tires are so big and so hard, and it's just the way that it's set up. So, you know, it's not the most comfortable machine on the trail, especially on a rocky trail where there is a lot of those, but it is really fun and it's capable. And I rode it all day long in all kind of terrain and all sorts of trails that were different than just mudding, you know. So you can do it. You can 100% do it. Out back here, you'll see it does come it does come with the bumpers on it. It does come with a hitch. I'm not sure who is going to be towing a trailer with one of these. I wouldn't personally, but you know, it's there if you need to do it. This has they call it TTI, so it's torsional trailing arm independent suspension. It doesn't have rear A-arms. There's no rear A-arms on this thing at all, and it allows for the wheel to follow a more up and down motion, a more linear motion, as opposed to on an A-arm. You get a little bit of scrub sometimes on the A-arm if you don't get it dialed quite right. This does have the, you can do preload on the suspension to raise or lower it a little bit. It does not have the Fox shocks with the reservoirs, but honestly, I thought it rode pretty darn well in most of the conditions. We ran it over rocks. We ran it high speed. We jumped it. Yes, we jumped it, and it performed really, really, really well in all of those conditions. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the Can-Am seat. As you can see here, it's nice and plush, nice and cushy, and see my wife bringing the tractor down here, so she's the one interrupting us. So sorry for that noise. Big cushy seat. Notice it has the foot pegs. The foot pegs are sharp. Like, you won't want to ride this thing with flip-flops or bare feet because these things are really sharp and pretty gnarly. So, and the reason being, because if you're riding them with waders on, which I actually did yesterday for the first time ever, rode with waders, also really incredible. And you can get those waders on there and let them get a good bite on this thing, and it just works really well. So, in summary, it's expensive, sure. $11,999 I believe is retail, but at the end of the day, if you are in the market for a mud machine, a mud specific machine, this Outlander 850 is a perfect place to start. I personally don't think you need a 1000. I'm 6'2" and 200 pounds, and it drugged me around you know, all over the place. I'm coming out of corners and stabbing it, and it's pulling the front end in the air. So, you know, you're able to ride wheelies with it. It has enough power that you can do that, and I like it. And honestly, I know that Can-Am also offers the XMR Renegade. We've had some to test. They're fun. I prefer the Outlander because the Outlander has bigger fenders, and I stayed cleaner, you know. And that sounds kind of like an oxymoron, right? Like, you're gonna buy a mud machine and you're worried about staying clean. Well, I'm not necessarily worried about my legs staying clean. I'm worried about my goggles staying clean so I can see, and I'm worried about my hands staying clean so I can actually hold on to the controls well enough. And we oftentimes ride, you know, you'll go out in mud and you'll ride a lot more miles on top of it. So I need something that is able to do that and keep me clean enough that I'm really comfortable. So in any case, hit us back with any questions you have. I'm happy to answer them. And I'm looking forward to taking this thing out and doing a little bit more testing with it, possibly some modifications with it as well too. And for the record, we didn't forget about the Maverick X MR RC, or I'm sorry, not the Maverick X MR, the Maverick Sport RC. We are doing some projects with it, and we're going to do an overland build with it here in a little bit. So we should have some product coming for it eventually. We're in the heat of coronavirus situation right now, so shipping and receiving those products, you know, we just have to be patient like everybody else, and yeah, so that's where we're at. So in any case, check us out, check our other videos out, like the page, subscribe, and we'll keep pushing great content out to you. Have a great day.